Hey, I'm Frankie Subtella. Tonight I'm going to tell you about the Antwerp Diamond heist.
Heists in the hallway, smoke in the room, a kiss, a lie, then the whole thing boom. You got a story? I got three. I was there when it happened, ask me. I'm the witness, baby. I'm the witness, baby. Every wild thing, it came through me. From Brooklyn to Jersey, I kept the books. Every back room promise, every dirty look. So if you want the truth, here's where it begins. Subtella Stories.
In the late summer of 2000, a man named Leonardo Notarbartolo walked into the management office of the Antwerp Diamond Centre on Schoopstraat and signed a lease for a small office on one of the upper floors. He paid in cash. He paid for the safe deposit box, too, one of the underground vault's tenant boxes in the third sub-basement, behind a door the trade press described as effectively unbreachable. The next week, he came back with a briefcase of cut stones, real ones, and started doing business. The stones in his briefcase were genuine, and so were the sales he made over the next 2.5 years. You see, the cover was not a cover. Here's Schoopstraat. 80% of the world's rough diamonds move through these few blocks. Hasidic dealers in dark coats, Indian families on the second floor, Lebanese intermediaries, Belgian-born brokers. He took meetings. He bought and sold stones. The receptionist learned his children's names. The vault staff buzzed him through without looking up, the way they buzzed the other 40-odd tenants. Within a year, he was the kind of tenant the building forgot to think about. That, you understand, was the cover, working exactly as designed. Now picture the vault with me. Outer door, weighing several tons, sealed by a key, plus a combination dial that changed every few months. A magnetic field sensor across the doorway, Doppler radar that registered any motion above the speed of a fly, a heat sensor calibrated to the warmth of a human body, a seismic detector under the floor sensitive enough to register footfall in a building several streets away, CCTV, a private security force with a radio link to Belgian police, response time measured in minutes. Notarbartolo took the tenant brochure home to Turin and studied it. They were also operated by people, and people, given time, will let a familiar face do things they would never let a stranger do. His oldest associate was Pietro Tavano. Early 40s, a decade fitting locks before drifting into the work that paid better. The rest of the crew came from a loose Turin network the press would later christen the School of Turin. A handful of specialists filtered into Notarbartolo's life one at a time across the autumn of 2002. None of them lived in Belgium. Notarbartolo did. He was the face. They were the hands. By late 2002, the crew had agreed on the actual problem. It wasn't the door. The door was a problem they had no realistic answer to. The problem was the sensors in the chamber and the camera in the corridor. Both could be made blind, given 2.5 years of knowing exactly which directions to come from and at what times the security room upstairs was thinnest. How they did it depends on who you ask. Wired says polystyrene shield over the detector head, muffling the signal. Selby and Campbell's book says hairspray at the sensor's seam. Pick whichever you want. The door opened. Saturday, 15 February 2003. Notarbartolo, as you might guess, had stayed late on Friday. By Saturday night, the crew was inside. They walked the route they'd walked before, slowly, deliberately, with the unhurried gait of tenants who had a reason to be there. The corridor cameras recorded everything, but the tape would not be reviewed until Monday morning. No masks. Notarbartolo had been having conversations in that building for almost 3 years. They reached the chamber. They blinded what needed blinding. The door, by a method the Belgian court would later describe in careful enough terms to remain defensible, opened. They sat down inside the European diamond trade's most secure room with hand tools, working models they'd practiced on in turn. They opened more than 100 boxes. They didn't take everything from every box. They took the small, the dense, the negotiable, diamonds, gold coins, cut stones, bearer bonds, jewelry in small velvet bags, bulky paperwork, family heirlooms with no resale value. Anything too large to fit in a hold-all went back in the boxes or onto the floor. By sunrise, they were gone. Estimates of the haul varied wildly. The Antwerp Diamond High Council put the loss at over $100 million. Some insurance figures suggested it may have approached 300 or 400. The actual figure, you should know, has never been settled. By Sunday morning, the crew was in a car driving south. They pulled off the E19 motorway into a copse of bare February trees in the Floordambos area. They burned what they could. They tied the rest into black bin bags. One of the men, working through the food they'd brought to eat during the night, dropped a half-eaten salami sandwich, yes, you read that right, into one of the bags before he tied it. They drove on. Monday morning, 17 February 2003. A man named August Van Camp, 60s, retired. You'll like him. Lived near the Floordambos copse. Hunter and amateur naturalist. He noticed the bin bags from the road because they had not been there on Sunday afternoon. He walked into the copse. He opened one of the bags. He saw the partly burned papers and the food wrappers and the sandwich. He called the police. Antwerp's Diamond Squad had been alerted that morning by the Diamond Centre staff who'd arrived to find the chamber in disarray. The two pieces of information, the largest diamond theft in European history north of the city, a bag of burned paper and a sandwich in a copse south of the city, were not initially related. They were related within the day by Patrick Pays, the Diamond Squad detective who had taken charge of the investigation. Pays recognized what he was looking at. You would too, when the bin bags landed on his desk. Envelopes addressed to Diamond Centre tenants, business cards, receipts in Italian, a sandwich. Trace material was lifted from the upper floor office where Notarbartolo had been the careful tenant for nearly 3 years. The sandwich, you'll remember, carried DNA. Notarbartolo was arrested within the week. Tavano was picked up in Italy. The Turin men, Elio Denorio, Ferdinando Finotto, and Iello Fontanella, were arrested over the following weeks. The Italian press picked up the School of Turin label and ran with it. None of the principal stones were ever recovered. A handful of items surfaced later in unrelated trades and seizures, but the bulk of the haul vanished into trade routes that don't ask questions. The trial, you might already know, took place in Antwerp in 2005. Notarbartolo got 10 years. Tavano and the others slightly less. The vault was refurbished. The dumped sandwich, in the years that followed, became the single most repeated detail of the case, the one image every retelling carries. The diamonds did not.